Alright everybody, welcome back to Tag Garage. So this time, we'll be doing some work on the daily. This here is the 2017 Camaro. This is a 2.0 turbo. And what we got going on, obviously, the car's wet because it's been raining. So I had rotated the tires, trying to make sure our tires were all in good order. And noticed something. I noticed on the left front mainly, we're having some funny tire wear where the tread blocks are a little uneven, has the cupping going on. And so basically that's a sign of bad shocks. So I started looking around to make sure, see if I could see something else that pointed me towards bad shocks. And why don't you come over here and I'll show you. Okay, so right up in here you can see, and you can see it on the other side too. See how it's kind of like darker here and there's a lot of like road grime and stuff kind of sticking to everything? Well, that's a sign right there that the shock's actually been leaking. And that's what's causing our kind of funny tire wear, because it's just not damping the way it's supposed to at high speeds anymore. So we decided we're going to go ahead and fix it, but not only are we fixing it, we're upgrading it, because that's what we do around here. So we got the ZZP Coilovers specifically for the 2.0 Camaro. Let's unbox those, see what we got. Alright, so first steps first. We're going to make sure the preload on our springs is good, since we have this adjustable preload on here. So I looked up how ZZP says to actually set it. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to make sure you got some room on the threads here. You're going to take your ride height adjustment collar, get it down out of the way. And these here are the two that lock down your preload adjustment. So what you're going to do is you're going to break these loose with your two spanners that come in the kit. All right. That's broken loose. Get that collar down out here out of the way. So we have some room. We're going to loosen this one until the spring is basically loose in here. So you see, my spring's pretty much loose in here. It has a little play. So now we're going to spin this collar back to where it just starts to put some pressure on the spring. So right about there. Then we're going to take our lock collar. We're going to spin it up to it. And that's going to basically be our like base adjustment. So from here, what ZZP recommends is that we're going to turn this collar up to where we can fit these two spanners that it comes with in here between our base collar and our actual adjuster, our lock collar and our adjuster. So we got to make sure we don't spin this collar while we turn this one. And just a heads up, it does get a little bit tight where you're getting to where there are two wrenches. So be ready to be holding. Once you get that space of the two wrenches, just tighten down your collars. Okay, so now we're going to start taking our coilovers apart. First thing to do is take off your sway bar. So that would have been right here. I've already taken ours off, but that's an 18. Take that off, take it out of the way, and probably do both sides actually, from what I'm learning here. Maybe just take both sides of the sway bar off so that way nothing's binding with nothing. The next step after that is to get these off here. So these are going to be the actual strut nuts. I'm gonna try with the impact first. Most likely it's not gonna break loose. You might have to break loose with a breaker bar like I'm about to do, and then to run them off with the impact. All right, now once you get those loose, the bolts aren't just gonna come out because they're actually splined on one side. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our mallet. This is actually like a copper tipped mallet, so that way I don't beat them up too bad. And we're going to make sure we leave our nuts just kind of back on the bolt here, so that way we don't mushroom the tip, mess up threads, anything like that. All right, so that's what it takes. Don't be afraid to give it a good whacking. And here's the splines, almost like a stud, kind of like a wheel stud. So anyway, let's get the other one out. All right, next thing, we have our brake line held on right here, 10 millimeter. Let's pop that bad boy off. Apparently we also got a neighbor drumming, so enjoy that, hopefully. Now we got this little clip right here. Get this guy, oh, this one's on this side, that's more convenient. There we go, that comes out. Careful not to get yourself with the little screwdriver. Now we'll pull the rest of our stud bolt out here, or our strut bolt. Okay, so we're about to go up to the top, but something to keep in mind here. Try not to stress out your wiring too much. This is for the ABS or your brake line, obviously. So I'm trying to lay it to where it doesn't actually pull on it the whole time we're messing with it in here. But nothing else, just don't yank on this for sure. So these top ones here are 13s. I'm gonna kind of try to leave them finger tight, so that way it doesn't just drop out of the car. I can just undo one with one hand while holding it to the shock. And now it just pulls out. All right, so now to set our rough ride height, what I did was I set them, the new coils next to the old coils, and kind of measured from here to our top bolt hole. It's not going to be exactly like exact, but it should get us pretty close, and then we can always fine tune when they're on the car. So stock here from the top head to the middle of the bolt hole here looks like it's about 18 1/4. So I wanted to go down about 2 inches. So what I did was I set my ride height, well, my height from the top hat to about the center of the hole, right here, set it at about 16 inches here. Then we can always fine tune when it's on the car if it's too low or whatnot. So now we're gonna go ahead and put the coil in. I like to leave everything loose until I actually have everything kind of situated, so I'm just going to run these down by hand for now. There we go. One cool thing about these coilovers also is they have the camber plates on the top hats kind of built into it here, where you can actually do a little extra adjustment of the camber up top. So what I'm doing, ZZP actually says to like make it to where it's maximum camber, positive camber, and then let the shop do it and then kind of set it back. I didn't quite do that. I kind of left it to where it's set in the center according to this mark here on the top, because just in case I wanted to play with it, I want to be able to go either way. So that's kind of where I left it right now. But even that, the way the bolts are set on these, the way they came, it's about as far outward as it's going to come anyway. So I'm gonna try that. All right, then you gotta just basically reverse the process of putting it in once you get your wiring to cooperate with you. All right, so once you get those bolts back in, you actually gotta kind of pound them from the backside to make sure those splines get started, so that way you can actually tighten down the nuts. All right, we got both front coilovers on. Let's get some tires on it, drop it down, and see where we ended up. All right, we're gonna set it down, see where it goes. That seems really high. So it didn't go as planned. So basically, what I did when I measured my ride height was I went from about center of the hub to my fender here. And so what it was is it was about 16, or I think it was about 15, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. So it's about 15 inches. And now we're sitting at about 16 when I thought I lowered it 2 inches. So I guess really what we want to do is probably lower it about 2 inches now. Because now that I'm looking at it, 2 inches from where it was might be a little low, but 2 inches from now would be like perfect. All right, so let's go see about doing that. So we got ourselves all readjusted. So what I did to go down that further 2 inches is I loosened this collar here. That's your actual height adjusting collar. You loosen that, bring it up some, and then I use these collars to actually bring it down. And so the way I measured it was if you come down here to the bottom side of the shock, it's basically a hole right here. And so if you measure up in there with a tape measure, you'll get to the bottom of the actual shock body itself as it threads down. Anyway, so we were at 3 3/4, and I threaded her down until it measured at just about 1 3/4 because I wanted to come down about 2 inches. Let's see how that sits. It worked. So we got the alignment all adjusted. You just saw us do that, or not the alignment, but the level adjusted. It turned out exactly, pretty much I think where I want it. We still have a little bit of gap. It's a daily driver, so we're going to drive it a lot. We want to make sure we got all the clearance we need. And yeah, we went down just about, maybe just a smidge over an inch, maybe like an inch and an eighth or something like that. And so far I'm liking it. Now, let's figure out those backs. These rears are going to be a little bit different. Still a coilover setup, obviously, but they don't go like on top of each other. They're actually separated back there. So we have our spring separated from our shock. So we still have all the adjustments we have in the front. We got our preload and all that kind of stuff. It just works a little different. So to start out, we're gonna get our spring set up the way we need it. So I already did the other side, so we took all the guesswork out of it for this time. But basically, when you put your spring in, it goes just like this, where you have your adjuster on top, you got your rubber isolators on top and bottom here and on the bottom. So what we ended up doing, we actually need to go all the way max in the back to try to do what we're doing. We were trying to go an inch lower all the way around, and it turns out that for our particular car, maxed out on the back is only about 3/4 drop. At least that's what it seems like so far, just sitting in the garage. I'm hoping it's going to kind of settle out and go a little bit lower as we drive it. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and max out the tops and put it all back together. We'll lock up our collars here. And by the way, the reason why ours may be already a little bit lower than some of them is when we bought ours, on the sticker it does say that it had sport springs in it. So ours might have been a tad lower because we'd compared it to a couple other Camaros we'd seen driving around, and it kind of always seems a smidge lower than everybody else anyway. So that might be why we're not getting quite as much adjustment out of it as some other people are, and why it's not taking as much like at the front to get that lower stance. But anyway, we'll see how this goes. So anyway, yeah, we got that all the way bottomed. So we're gonna go ahead and just leave that like that. Now let's head over to the car. So first thing we're gonna do to get some access here is we gotta kind of take loose our inner fender liners here. So we got a couple Torx that we're gonna be taking out. They're T15s. And then we got this little clip right here in the center. It's a super easy one. It's kind of like a plastic clip that just kind of pushes onto a stud, and it just kind of spins off by hand. All right, so that's all it really takes to be able to get access to your top of your shock here. There's 3 nuts up there. We're gonna take those out in a second. But for now, that's fine. Now we got to go down. All right, so on our lower arm here, we got this little shield thing. We got to take this off because that's where our bottom bolt is and everything for the shock. So these little clips, they're pretty easy to take out. You just got to be a little gentle, especially if you have maybe an older car than ours is, if you're doing this in a little while or something. So basically you just take out the centerpiece, kind of pops out real easy, and then theoretically, it just pulls right out. No big deal. Again, ours has been in a pretty temperate climate, and it's not really that old yet, so if you're doing this in a couple years, or maybe if you live in the desert or something like that, you might have a harder time getting these out. But they should be pretty easy. All right, so next we're going to go ahead and disconnect the sway bar. We have our other side already disconnected, and we're going to reconnect this once we have everything all back at the same height. Now we're gonna loosen the back one, and then keep in mind on this back one, it has a mark already set. That's your kind of alignment mark for now. Just trying to match that back up, but then once we have it all done, we gotta definitely go get an alignment. Almost pretty much right away, because it could all be wrong. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and get the 15s out of here. And basically, it's just gonna pull them right out. Like that, set that aside. Okay, so this is gonna be one of the harder parts of the whole thing right now. So basically we have to get the alignment bolt out, so that way we're gonna drop this whole arm down to get this original spring out. So what I'm gonna kinda do is I'm gonna kinda tap it a little bit with the nut on it to try to get the back washer off, so that way we have some like wiggle room to get it out the rest of the way. Okay, can you jack it up just a little? Okay, let's try that, hold on. That's good. Okay, so we got that bolt out, and now we're gonna go ahead and lower the arm slowly so the spring comes out. All right, so you can see at this point, pressure's off, no big deal. So go ahead and let it down some. There you go, that's probably enough. Now we just gotta actually get the spring out. All right. So it comes out just like that, and then you wanna make sure you get your top and bottom rubber isolators. Okay, so now we just gotta put everything back up in there. Remember, you wanna make sure you have your rubber isolators on here, top and bottom, and all your stuff in this, remember, goes on top. So we'll feed her up in there. Make sure it's on its little seat up in here. Then, at the moment, we can kind of just, oh wow. All right, yeah, just go ahead and get that up here to hold that up. So apparently going really low, right off the bat, makes it really easy to put this in. Go up just a little bit more. All right, there's, oh, too much. Right there. All right. Then we're just gonna get our bolt back through. All right, now we just gotta put our washer and our nut back on, try and line up our blue marks. And we're on to the next step. All right, being that we know that our ride height's right, I'm pretty much gonna put this this front bolt back in tight too. You can see in the back, we got our marks all lined up on that actual alignment bolt. Next step, we gotta move our top hats onto our new coilovers. So you can try and do it with the impact, but it's probably gonna do this where it doesn't come out. So that's not gonna do it. So what you gotta do, a 15 ratchet wrench is gonna be ideal. That on here. Get you a crescent wrench, because there's actually flat sides on that top shaft. So then you just gotta work it off that way. So you pull off your hat, like so. Don't need any of this anymore, that goes in your scrap pile. All right, so then you're gonna take your coilover. You got your hat, go ahead and slide her on here, like so. And basically, the only thing you gotta worry about lining up right now is you wanna make sure because like that's how it bolts on the car, right? You want to make sure you can get to your damper, so that way it just shows you this little label on your little damper right here, so you can get to it to adjust it later. Then take your washer that you pulled off, your stock one, put that back here. Then you got your new nut, came with the coilovers. Go ahead and start that on there. And so you could try to like zap that down with the impact. I'm not a big fan of that because if you turn this shaft too much, that's gonna mess up stuff inside the shock. So the way I did it, I got the Allen that actually fits in top of the shock like that. These have a 17, so I got my ratchet wrench here too. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and tighten this down just like that, making sure to keep this all lined up. Then we're gonna take this, put it in the car. Basically, you're gonna, seat her in here. Get everything back up behind these carpety fender liners. There we go. Get our nuts started back on it again. All right, so then with the top, we're just gonna go ahead and zap this side back together because everything's gonna be set right, so we're good to go. And while we're at it, we're just gonna go ahead and put that fender liner stuff back together real quick. So everything's done up here. Now we just gotta finish setting the preload on it. Okay, so basically the preload for the back adjusts right here with this, basically this depth, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead, run this down for now, and we're gonna make it to where the top of the hole is kind of like, well, we're gonna make it so that when our actual hole is protruding here, we basically have to go up a little bit to get the bolt in it, and that'll set our little bit of preload on it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rotate the shock body some. All right, and then we get to the point where you can't actually just rotate it anymore. What you can do, just kind of hold the bottom and it's gonna like wedge its way down in here, and just grab the shock body and you can turn that instead of the actual bottom. So here you can see what I'm talking about. So basically that right there is the hole where the bolt goes through, and I made it to where it's just barely an opening here, and then we're gonna put a jack under the actual control arm, push it up, put the bolt in it, and that's gonna be our preload adjustment. And then we just lock down this collar when we have that all done. And that's basically that. We got everything tight. Now we can set our damper too. So what I saw the video that ZZP did, they put them onto a Cadillac that they wanted kind of a softer ride on, and they set it at 12 clicks, or it was 8 clicks in the front and 10 in the back. So I was gonna go a few clicks more than that because we do daily drive this car. So I was gonna do 12 in the back and 10 in the front. Then we just gotta put that lower cover back on, throw the wheel on it, drop it down.
And sway bar.
And connect the sway bar on both sides. And that's where everything goes sideways. So the install went great. We were able to set it down on the ground. For the reference, bottomed out on the adjuster was very low. Once we took it around the block, it definitely settled a lot in the rear. So we did have to readjust that to get it back up to where we wanted it to be. No big deal, we got that done. Got the alignment set, all that was fine. And so I was going to actually continue on the video once I got the alignment done and the tires on it. I got as far as we got the alignment done, handled great. This suspension really is a great product. If you have one of these Camaros, highly recommend you go get it because it did handle very good. Not a lot of noises, not super stiff, but like just right, just a little bit better handling than stock and almost the same comfort. Highly recommend them. However, what happened next was not great. So we got the alignment done, drove the car a little bit, and then it ended up developing a misfire. I had a check engine light for the misfire code, pulled over, got the car towed back to the house, diagnosed it, and it ended up being a bad coil pack. So got a set of ignition coils from ZZP Performance, same place that did the coilovers. They look great, put them on, took care of the code, check engine light, I turned that off, didn't come back, all that was all good. We ended up going to put the tires on it because that was the whole reason we went down this whole path, was because the tires were worn out. Now, once we got the car back with the tires, took it for another quick drive. It was great, did a couple errands with it, and we're on the way back to our house when everything went sideways. Yeah, so we stopped at a light, and once we went to leave this light, it just threw the number one rod right out the side of the block. Just boom, just gone. Yeah, so not a great day. And so we ended up pulling over, got towed back home again, and then we found the carnage. Basically, like I said, number one, the rod must have let go. We pulled the spark plug out. It was all smashed down. I found chunks on the under trays, just, looking down in the engine bay. And then once I found that, I started sticking my phone down in the engine bay, trying to look at the engine with the phone, it's kind of like a remote camera. And that's when we saw the hole in the block. And yeah, not only is there a hole in one side, you can actually see all the way through the block. So unfortunately, this is the end of my Camaro. First car I ever bought brand new, did all the maintenance on it, thought everything was great, and it really was great right up until the engine let go. It was a sad day. So just if you have these cars, apparently you got to be very, very gentle with them. I talked to some people. I had an intake and I had the exhaust on it to catch cans. Supposedly that wasn't anything that caused me a problem, or obviously the coil packs that I replaced, that was all fine. It's just, from what I'm told, these engines are very, very fragile. And so if you have one of these cars, enjoy it. It's an amazing car. I really like it. It handles great, but just be careful with your motors. So unfortunately, that's it for us. That's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff for more content. Unfortunately, there's not going to be any more from this Camaro. Thank you.